Hey everyone, on this episode of Inside the Mind, a podcast about athletes, I have CJ Wedenig, who's a hockey goalie at the University of Central Oklahoma. He also has a lot of experience playing in various junior leagues in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So he has a lot of experience, and he gave a lot of good strategies on how to deal with mental struggles, not only as a goalie, but as an athlete in general. Won't spoil too much of it though, so roll the intro. I guess you guys are in the middle of hockey season right now still?
We're getting near the end, almost into playoff national side of situation. So
Yeah. That's pretty good. Has it been a long season? I guess I'm not too familiar with college hockey in the States and when the season starts and ends and stuff.
Well, it starts in August and it's going to finish for us in February. So
okay.
August, September is when we start to play preseason games and whatnot. And then
yeah.
Middle of September hits, we're into regular season until end of February.
Yeah. How did you end up there at Central Oklahoma? Because I'm just curious. I was looking through I know you played at the AMHL, but what was your process after that of getting then to Central Oklahoma?
Well, it was sort of a last minute thing. So what happened is their backup goalie from last year, Campbell, he ended up not being able to come back out here for the following season. So this year.
Right.
So we were looking at me to play somewhere that was a step above where I was last year in the KIJHL.
Mm-hmm. So
we reached out to them because we saw something on LinkedIn that there was a spot open. They're looking for a goalie. And basically, long story short, we went through all the paperwork, figured everything out, and took the whole application to college from a 3-4 month thing to a span of a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Yeah. So a bit of a stressful situation, I would guess, because like you said, it probably right down to the deadline and everything. It's pretty crazy when you think about it, just how much, you probably experienced it yourself as a goalie or as an athlete, but how much social media has opened up opportunities to play places and to meet coaches and other players and stuff. Cause obviously probably as far back as 10, 15 years ago, nobody on Central Oklahoma would be posting on LinkedIn saying they're asking for a goalie or something, right? It's just crazy when you think about it, how much the world of sports has changed with social media and technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask, was it a hard decision to leave home and go to Oklahoma? Cause it's obviously not a 2 or 3 hour drive away. I would assume it was a pretty long flight, and not only that, but you're in a whole nother country too. So there's that added to it. Was there any hesitation on your part to make that jump? Or because, I'm thinking back to I always say this when I talk with athletes that make that huge jump in going from home to somewhere else to play, is I couldn't imagine myself doing something like that, or at least it being a bit of a hard decision to make. But what was it like for you?
For me, I feel like it was a bit of a blessing that it was such a short distance in time to figure out if I was taking this opportunity or not.
Right.
Because for me, I handle really good under pressure. That's sort of my thing. So through the pressure, I was able to be this is going to get me to the next step towards my goal of playing high professional hockey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So taking that step and...
Yeah. How much did that do you find that transfers over to your play as a goalie, dealing with pressure and stuff? Was it something that you always felt that you kind of had a knack for, or was it something that you developed over time and maybe you struggled with at the beginning? What was kind of your timeline with that, if there is a timeline, I guess?
Well, my parents first off didn't want to be the quote unquote hockey parents in Canada and whatnot, right? That to save money and try to lean me towards other things and whatnot. So I've tried soccer and all that, but all my friends were playing hockey and it looked fun from what I saw. So I begged them to let me play. So I was a little late bloomer. So at around 8 years old is when I started to skate and join hockey. And I wanted to be a goalie, but of course I didn't know how to skate. So my parents were like, play the first year as player, so you at least know what's going on.
Yeah.
Skate and sort of understand the game before you jump in the net. And then there was a roller hockey season in between during spring, and they were able to rent out gear for goalies. So my parents were like, you can go into that, rent gear for like $100, nothing too bad, right? So went in there, and all the parents were super surprised that it's my first time in net, and they finally were convinced after a year and a half, 2 years later, and was able to become a goalie, and then just kept working at it. Started out just as something fun that I enjoyed. And then as I went up the ranks, I started to see that there was a special talent that everyone else was seeing. And I saw that I could go places with this talent, and here I am. So,
yeah. When you feel the special talent, you feel like you're kind of getting somewhere with your talent. How hard is it to like not get in? Because I haven't played as high of a level of hockey as you have, so I'm kind of wondering what it feels like to know that you have that talent, and how hard is it to not let your ego get in front of things? Like, did you ever have kind of that battle where maybe you felt like you were overconfident for things, and maybe you kind of, maybe had a bad game or two if you underestimated an opponent? You know what I'm kind of say there, like the confidence. How much of a battle between like humbleness and ego comes into play when you first recognize that you're really, really good at a specific sport and a specific position as well?
Well, for me, it was always looking back at the past and where I came from, looking at the roots, and that sort of helped ground me when success was coming my way, jumping from AAA to AAA team and a bunch of stuff like that. So, like I said, just looking back and seeing that you used to be way at the bottom where you could barely stand on your 2 feet to being where you are now. So just to take it all in and not let it get to your head. And
yeah, I think that's so important for athletes. Like when they get to the higher levels, and as a way to not get caught up in the moment, is like, think where you came from. And everybody starts off, at a certain spot. Everybody starts off at a point where they can't skate, or they can't hit a ball, or can't throw a ball or whatever. So I think it's always a good strategy, like you said, for players that are worried about like getting too caught up in the moment, about the hype and all that stuff.
Yeah.
To kind of think back where you came from and just realize, how grateful of an opportunity it is that you even made it this far, because there's millions of kids in Canada that have tried it and failed. Yeah. Which exactly. I'm sure, like, obviously in the GTA, it's one of the hotbeds of hockey. So I see it day in and day out, but I'm sure it's in the Calgary and Alberta area, it's no different.
Yeah. There's a few probably more than a few teammates and people I played hockey with through the ranks that just dream of where I am now. So it's quite the blessing and honor to get to where I am now and all the opportunities I've had. So.
Yeah. And I was looking back at the AMHL, and I wonder what your feelings were playing that league, or maybe if you had if you had the perspective you have of that league now, looking back at it. Because looking back at it, there were some NHL players that played in the league. I think around the same time that you played, like Kirby Dack played, Kale McCarr played in that league. Like, just so those are kind of the two notable guys that came to my mind first. But when you were playing in the AMHL, did you realize kind of how high of a level of hockey it was, or is that something you kind of figured out more afterwards, looking back?
It was more, I guess, of a high level looking at it. I would say that one of the reasons was because of the Max Midget tournament that Calgary holds every Christmas.
Okay.
During Boxing Day and right around the World Juniors as well. Calgary holds this big Max Midget tournament, and it's always sort of looked up on from all the ranks and whatnot. It's broadcast through the news. So
yeah,
it's always been a big dream to play in that league. And
yeah. So if you're part of the AMHL, is your team automatically in that tournament, or do you still have to like qualify or apply for it?
The team I played for, there's 4 Calgary teams, and 2 of them host the Buffaloes and the North Stars. I played for the North Stars.
Okay.
So they host the tournaments. They're automatically put in the tournament, but all these other teams apply to get qualified.
Gotcha. Yeah, they have something similar in the Toronto area. It's called the Brick Invitational. It's the same thing. I think a similar age group too, but there's like a one or two host teams, and then the other ones have to apply or qualify or something. What was kind of your thought process during the tournament? I know we talked a bit about pressure, but was that an instance where you kind of felt maybe a bit more pressure than usual? Or if not, what were some of the things that you did to kind of maybe deal with maybe some of the pressure that you felt in such a high end and talked about tournament?
At first, I would say the pressure was definitely high.
Yeah.
Something that you're always looking forward to. And then you're finally there and it's like all these scouts are looking at you, tons of people there. So the pressure was high at first, but then one thing I did that helped tackle it is just to view it as just another game. And it's nothing extraordinary and it's nothing too low. So just kind of stay at the middle playing field, keep everything as it usually is, because at the end of the day, it's just another game to get through. So I did that and then just kept using affirmations, reinforced myself that I got this and it's going to be good, and just enjoy the moment while it lasts. So
Is that the same thing you did say? Those kind of sound like, I guess, things you do before the game, but say it was like after a tough game, maybe you didn't have the greatest game in the world, or you guys lost a really close game, or did you do those same things after the game, like just reaffirm yourself of maybe the positive things you could take out from it and try and do those things, I guess, to not get too down on yourself? Because so many times, I'm sure you're familiar with it too, but for sure here in the GTA, in my experience, where kids, they have these high level tournaments and stuff, and something goes wrong and it's almost like a downward spiral. They get so down on themselves and they can't get out of it. So what were kind of the things, I guess, that you did after a tough loss or something to not like enter that downward spiral and just, have worst case scenario?
Yeah. So for me, like during a play, for example, like you said, if you make a mistake or something happens that you don't want, some of the things that I do is, through the mental coaching I've had, is to click like the reset button and to just refocus. So I call it the 3 R's. So to relax first and not get too tense over something that happened, reset your mind, sort of siphon through what went on, what you could do different, and then just refocus, get ready for the next play to come, next shot. And then for like, if a bad loss happens or you let in too many goals or something like that as a goalie, what I like to do is just to, like I said, analyze, see what happens, and just, I'd say, be grateful for being able to play where I'm at and just count the blessings and be happy I'm still doing what I'm doing. And it might not have worked out, but there's still opportunity ahead, and came down to enjoying the game that I love to play. So
yeah. One thing I like to do with a lot of the athletes that I work with is I always try to compare the mistakes they make to the mistakes that like professional NHL goalies make. Like there's no goalie in the world that has a shutout every game. Right. And you'll see, I mean, me, myself being a huge Leaf fan, I mean, I don't know how many games I watched this year where Michael Hutchison maybe didn't let in the greatest of goals, but you kind of got to realize that, even the NHL goalies still make mistakes. And even though someone like Michael Hutchison might, let in a couple bad goals over the course of a couple of games, he's able to bounce back. And then I think he had a shutout against the Islanders a couple of weeks ago. So I always compare how my athletes do and the mistakes they make. And I compare it to what NHL goalies or players do. And even another example that kind of came to my mind thinking about this was like, those goals you see where the player shoots it from like the red line or from their own end. Like there was one against Vesa Toskala when he was on the Leafs like 10 years ago, and he let one in like 200 feet away. Like if someone like Toskala is such a pro NHL goalie and he lets in a big mistake like that kind of gives you a bit of perspective of, the mistakes that you're making and that they're just, you're able to overcome them. It's not the end of the world, basically. Everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah, I definitely analyze the game and see some of the mistakes that professional goalies make as well. And it's, I guess, a breath of fresh air to realize that no one's really perfect at it, and it happens to everyone. So
yeah. One thing that's always kind of fascinated me, or maybe I've been curious about for goalies, is as a player, I would say, thinking about like their game, like the timeline of their game, they're either on the ice in the middle of the play, or the players on the bench, either talking to the coach or talking to their line mates or something. But with the goalie, it's a bit different, where you're kind of in the net all by yourself and you don't really talk to your teammates, I guess, until the in between the intermission or something. As a goalie, is it challenging, or have you found it challenging in some instances to like stay focused when, there's those long periods of play where the puck's down the ice? Or maybe what were some things you did to maybe stay focused during that time?
Oh yeah, it's definitely been difficult in some games where it's hard to stay focused, but through the years I've developed different techniques. Some techniques where I am commentating in a way with different plays, what's going on. Other times I visualize myself being the other goalie and what I would do, and sort of take it in that way, how I would do the play, and just work in my mind in case that play happens to me at some point in the game, or in a game in the future, something like that. And
yeah. Growing up, were there any goalies that you kind of looked up to in the NHL that you tried to model your game after? I mean, I don't know if you've been from Calgary, if that means you're a huge Flame fan, but one goalie that sticks out to me is Mika Kiprasov, who grew up, when I grew up, he was the Flames' main goalie. Was there any goalie that you looked up to kind of as a role model?
Yes, I definitely started with Kiprasov, and then I was also a little bit of Luongo as well, sort of the mix between the two.
Okay.
And then as they moved on, Jonathan Quick has become my sort of idol, if you want to put it that way, someone I try to model off of. And also Price and Jones, those would be my big guys I like to look up to and model my play after. So
yeah. What is it about Martin Jones that really is like a role model for you? Because I'm just kind of thinking those are all like super all-star goalies and stuff, and Martin Jones maybe hasn't had so much success as the other goalies. But what is it specifically about Martin Jones that you like about him? Is it like his play style, his mental toughness, I guess?
Well, for Martin Jones, first off, I remember when I was younger and I was watching him when he was playing on the Calgary Hitmen in the WHL. So I was always idling him. And then when he left the Hitmen, I kind of, I guess, lost contact in a way of where he was playing. Didn't really give too much attention until he ended up on the LA Kings as a backup for Jonathan Quick. So I saw that he was there, and it was very inspiring. So I looked back on where he was in that time frame where I didn't know where he went, and just to see the progress and how he has grown from playing in Calgary, where I was when I was like 9 years old, just starting out, to being in the NHL 4 or 5 years later. And the way he plays too, it's very structured, but when he needs to make a desperate play, for example, he's able to be athletic and flexible and make highlight reel saves if need be. So
how big, you mentioned the Hitmen. I was kind of curious, what's the culture around the WHL in Calgary specifically? Like, is there a lot of hype around the WHL? Do a lot of people follow it? Because here in Ontario, there was an article I read a couple of days ago that was a couple years old, but they went through the financials of all the CHL teams, and they found that the WHL teams had a lot more profit or revenue success compared to the OHL teams. And, being from Hamilton, there's always discussion in the city. They're looking for a new arena right now for the Bulldogs because they're playing in the First Ontario Center, which is like a 18,000 seats arena, and they get maybe like 1,000 or 2,000 fans a game. So I was just curious, what is your take on like the culture around the WHL in out west, and specifically in Calgary?
Well, the WHL is definitely, I guess, highlighted on a pedestal type of league in the West. It's what every kid that's playing high level hockey wants to obtain. in some way, shape, or form. And so there's a lot of push towards the WHL through the hockey ranks. And also there's a lot of advertising and stuff all about the Calgary Hitmen, and also the teddy bear toss game that they do every Christmas in December. I feel like that definitely brings in a lot of fans, and they come and see what the whole atmosphere is about, what everything in the organization is like. And through that game, gain more and more fans. And there are also the ticket price is a lot cheaper than going to like a Flames game. So there's a lot of families that go out to watch and with their little kids, because you know how kids sometimes have short attention spans, so just to get them in there and see what it's about. Sort of a family event is what it's structured around. A cheap family event that isn't too far out of the way. So definitely. I think, at least I think part of the problem with the OHL in Ontario is the attendance. I don't think just some of the fans maybe don't realize or maybe follow it as closely. I think because there's so much NHL talent in Ontario, like you got the Sabres, the Leafs, the Senators. Oh, exactly.
I mean, the Canadians aren't too far away either. So, and then the Red Wings just across the Windsor border. So there's so many NHL teams here that it's hard to, I would say, get enough fans excited to go to an OHL game when there's an NHL game. Whereas, I'm thinking about like out west, you got like the Oilers, the Flames, the Canucks, and the Jets really, but those are really far apart. And then you have a lot of WHL teams in like cities without a hockey team, like Seattle. But I mean, Seattle's getting an NHL team, but then there's like Lethbridge and Kelowna and just all over. So I think that plays a huge part too, is just, how many NHL teams are in the area. But I'm hoping that, the OHL can get some more fans, and, especially for Hamilton, because they've had some amazing players, over the past couple of years, like Matthew Strome, and they had Connor McMichael for a bit, but I feel like they don't get as much media attention in Ontario as they should. So that's just my 2 cents on the CHL. And I'm obviously not a director or anything, but just my 2 cents on it. One thing that, I was always curious about for goalies, I wanted to ask you. I asked another goalie that I talked to the same question too, but when I was like 7 or 8 and I started playing hockey, it was just house league, and they did the thing where like every game somebody else can like be a goalie, so everyone got a chance. And I was too scared to do it. I basically refused to do it because I couldn't get over the fear of like the puck coming at me, even though I was only 7 or 8 and the puck's like traveling, turtle speed compared to what you're facing right now. But even back then I had such a fear of the puck hitting me. Did you have that same fear when you started playing, or did you just kind of like look at it as just another part of the game, I guess?
Well, I wouldn't say there was any real fear. It was more of a natural drawing towards it. Like something in my intuition was pushing me towards this, and just getting in the net seemed right. It was fun. I enjoyed stopping pucks and robbing guys. That was the biggest probably highlight, is seeing the face of people who think they scored, but really they didn't, because you made a big highlight save. And just breaking down the game, and I like to feel like I control the game and how the game ends up unfolding. So just having the control and being able to do my own thing, but also be part of a team and contribute to the success of where the team goes. And
was there anything that kind of like maybe in your childhood that kind of like that you went through, but anything in your childhood that you experienced that you feel like pushed you towards being a goalie? Because I'm just thinking back to I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and he was talking about UFC fighters and how a lot of them, they became UFC fighters because they had older siblings or younger siblings, and they would just beat each other up all the time. And they kind of like got over that fear like pretty quickly of beating somebody up. And then they went on to be UFC fighters. I think he talked specifically about John Jones. I don't know how much you know about UFC and stuff, but John Jones is the light heavyweight champion And he grew up with two brothers that I think both his brothers are in the NFL. So growing up, his brothers would just beat him up or he would beat them up or they would go in a fight. And now he's like an elite level fighter. Was there anything like that in your childhood that he experienced? Or was it, more so just watching the game and just seeing and gravitating, I guess, to the goalie for some reason?
Well, for me, I feel like it started out just watching the game because I wasn't part of it right away. So just seeing all the gear with the goalies, as most younger kids are, I get drawn to it, just seeing the gear and being in awe of all the stuff they do. And then I would say I wanted to try it out. And once I tried it out, I enjoyed it, making big stops, and was always the one to volunteer to go in net because, of course, no one else wanted to. So
yeah,
I would always jump on in and see what it's like, and definitely just came natural to me. So
yeah, that's. I mean, I kind of always wonder what my hockey career would be like if a goalie came natural to me. I always think back about like if I just tried one game in goalie, what would it be like? And I think even. I don't know how much you relate to this, but I thought that I had that probably stopping the pucks and getting over that fear helps with a lot of other fears as well that you might encounter in life. Like, I don't know if you've experienced that at all, or if it's just a completely separate situation, maybe. Do you see any crossover there?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely some crossover. Like every goalie throughout his career at one time or another somehow gets fearful of the puck, whether it's through like an injury from the puck or something, because as a goalie, you get multiple stingers and sometimes it's hard to trust your gear. So whenever something was going on with that, it's always to just break it down in every shot, think of something positive or something good that brings you good vibes, like chocolate or ice cream or someone you love or something like that whenever you make a save. To sort of push you away from getting fearful of that. And I feel like that would transition into other things like being fearful of public speaking, going up there and understanding you got it and nothing bad's going to happen. And it's all basically in your head. So just push through it and think of positive things, reinforcements, affirmations, stuff like that. So
yeah. One last question I had about goalies and stuff was I always this is great for me because I had so many questions about what goalies think and the things they go through. So this is super educational to me. But how much does self-doubt play a role in your performance as a goalie? Like I'm thinking of instances where you're playing maybe with some of the bottom teams, and then you compare your mindset of playing some of the bottom teams to playing some of the top players. Like, have you gone through any experiences where you maybe doubted your ability a bit when you're going up against somebody that is super good one-on-one in a breakaway or something? And if you did, how did that affect your play, and how maybe were some strategies to get over that doubt?
Yeah, well, there's definitely doubt throughout the career. For me, what I did is I'd always approach a game, like I said, the same way I do every single game. And for me to get over the doubt, it's all about, I would say, affirmations. And one thing that I like that Tony Robbins always teaches is to change your state and how you're sort of sitting or your body language, stuff like that. So instead of slouching over and being nervous or something, what I would do is sit up straight and be proud of who I am, repeat affirmations in my head. And other tips I would do is I'd think of like someone I idol and be like, what would Jonathan Quick do? What would Martin Jones or Carey Price do in this situation? How would they act? What would they do? And then, in a sense, model the way they handle themselves, show the confidence swagger they have, and I find that the doubt slowly starts to disappear and you start to feel this confident energy flowing through you.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, how adjusting your body physically can have such a role mentally. There's so much, I think, interaction between like the physical and mental part of the body. Like you said, your posture. I think just having a good posture just does, I would assume, I'm not a doctor by any means, but I feel like if you have a better posture, it's easier to breathe. And when it's easier to breathe, then your kind of arousal level decreases, your heart rate decreases. Whereas you're all slouched over and stuff, maybe you take heavier breaths or you take shorter breaths or whatever it is. And it's always interesting talking with athletes, and they mention how much there's an interaction between the physical and the mental, where if they do something with their physical body, their mental side calms down, and they really kind of, it just highlights really that, you can't just focus on the physical or just the mental part in training. You need to look at both equally because they both can play such a huge impact in your role.
Yes, exactly. Totally agree with that.
Yeah. Anyways, man, thanks a lot for taking some time today. Wish you guys the best of luck in the rest of your season. Thanks everyone for checking out this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed any part of it, please share it with your friends and family, and I'll speak to you next time.